Good morning, everybody. I'm in Atlanta today, so it's good morning for me too. But if you are in other places around the world, good afternoon, uh, good evening, who knows? Here we are sharing this space and in this moment, even though it's a different hour in different places. Um, the topic today is stability and clarity, attention, stability, and clarity. And it has everything to do with CBCT, cognitively based compassion training, compassion. It has everything to do with connection. Uh, because in order to have a healthy, balanced connection with the thoughts in our head, with ourselves, uh, with our environment, um, we we want to pay attention. We want to have clarity, and uh, we are not going to have clarity without stability. And so maybe it helps to define what clarity is. And you see me a little bit distracted because I'm operating uh, some tools here to make sure I silence everyone. But what is clarity then? Um, and I say it's very important for a healthy, balanced connection. Clarity is seeing, it's holding something. And if you notice, I refer to sensory modalities because really paying attention is all that, is holding something without letting it fall, but not too tight that we break it, like the metaphor of the egg that I like. When you hold an egg, you want to hold it lightly, not too much that it falls, but not too strongly that it crashes. So this is paying attention. It's holding something, and in order to have a balanced connection with reality, that being your thoughts or others or your environment, it's extremely important uh, to see what is there and what you bring in. So this holding, this um, clarity has a binary um, component to it because it's not only up to us; it's also up to whatever we are holding, depending on the characteristics of the other thing that we are holding, being a sensation, my thoughts, or others. We may need to modulate our own behavior and the way we hold that thing that we are holding. So, and without getting too much into detail, to keep it simple and clear, stability helps clarity because stillness helps me to see what is in front of me without bringing more noise, more commotion, and it's not an all or none uh, thing. Stillness, we can be more still or less still, but we want to be as still as possible given the circumstances, given the needs of our moving environment. Um, and the outcome here is important, but it is less important than just giving it a try. So I warn you against the expectation that we are going to be still and we are going to have stability and then uh, clarity will flow. It may not happen. And that is okay. That is good practice. It is showing us different things that we need to do in different situations, and we keep trying, and ultimately we feel the benefits of that practice. Not all the time pleasant. I wish it was, but it's not working like we would like it to work all the time. But in the long term, we see the benefits of practicing that stillness that will bring that stability and that clarity. Once again, we can only create the conditions, but we don't predict the outcome. So let's be humble in how we approach this practice. And this matter of paying attention, healthy connection with our world, I said, has everything to do with compassion. Because what we try to do is to increase our perspective, to bring more clarity to our attention, to how we see, and eventually to how we relate to our world. There, we cannot predict the outcome, but we can a little bit do a few things. We can help create the conditions. At least we have two choices. We can come closer to an object, hold it tighter, or um, we don't have to do that. We can do the opposite and withdraw from an object or hold it more loosely. And so this is why the practice and experimenting with this is so important, with a very simple neutral stimulus that is generally a sensation that accompanies the breath, but it can be the sound, uh, physical sensation of any kind, the temperature, anything that actually um, gets our attention, and our attention, this ability to hold things, goes there without directing, without imposing on this sensation, but without being pulled, without allowing the sensation to take over. So this is the really helpful practice that will actually help us gain perspective with anything and everything around us and in our own head. Um, I often refer to paying attention as a dance because it takes two to tango. It takes the observer to approach or withdraw, but it takes something else to be uh, seen. And so, and the object has its own qualities that require, again, the observer to change the way we are observing. And I don't know if anybody here does horseback riding. I didn't. I did a few times in the past, but there are many things that uh, speak to that balanced connection in which you pay attention, which is not a static thing. You just don't observe and do nothing. You kind of modulate how much effort it's required to keep on holding continuously that horse or that boat if you sail, or that instrument if you play. Um, it's uh, it it almost is like if the instrument or the horse, the boat, have a life of their own. And so occupying yourself this way, this balanced way, this healthy way in which you don't take over, you don't direct the experiences, but you don't allow for them to hijack you, to take over. It's when you get there, highly pleasurable. It's, and this is where we want to go back. Oh, it feels so good to be occupied in a balanced way, doing what you can, feeling the push and pull of the thing, the task or the instrument or the sensation you are dancing with. But sometimes it happens and it's great, and sometimes it doesn't happen and it is great. It is great that it doesn't happen. I know it doesn't feel as good, but it's necessary. It's helpful because we want to experiment. We want to know when we are doing too much, when we are not doing enough. And it's all about that. And we start with something as simple as a sensation that accompanies the bread or any other stimulus. And then we are going to expand because obviously the connection is going to get more complex. The more we dig in our head, in ourselves, in who we are, in context, in relation to others, and what it is that I can do for others and what it is that I need is ultimately compassion. So compassion is a connection with our world, in which it is extremely important, the clarity of seeing, of holding what I need, what others need, where I can be my best version in this dynamic environment. This is what I wanted to see about attention stability and clarity, but the important thing is practice. And I love this module because we also get to have more moments of silence. It's not analytical. We don't need as much concepts, as much reflection. We don't need as many concepts. And I apologize if my internet connection is unstable, but we'll play with it and we'll practice. Again, I'm not gonna speak so much, and that is good. I already speak too much. Okay, let's go. So the sound of the gong marks the transition to this space of friendship, of community that we create again today, in which we are going to practice living in this comfortable cushion or chair with nice company. Um, we are going to venture out slowly into our lives to practice that connection, that way of existing, which only makes sense in context. We are individuals in relation to something or someone else. And we start from where we are, from this physical space that we occupy, the virtual space in which we may recognize some friends, and our body, the tangible part of our beings. And we can spend a little bit of time accommodating our posture, because the goal is to be as still as possible, which may be very different for each one of us. But stillness of the body will help stillness of the mind, and hopefully, maybe not, but hopefully will bring the clarity that is helpful in this connection. And in our posture, we feel the floor, the ground underneath us, firm, solid. And we feel the weight of our body. And that shows again that we feel things in context. There's the body, there's the ground. And we are placed securely on that floor that will not let us fall. But on that floor, we sit up. Uh, it's almost like if we wanted to aim for heaven with the crown of our heads, elongating our back, but not too much. Let's not make it uncomfortable or rigid. So even though straight, we can be relaxed, tilting the chin down, inclining slightly the head, wanting to aim for heaven, but in a reasonable way from the earth. And that straight back is also going to help us level the shoulders, open the chest, which will allow us to breathe us better. Breathe, which we do anyway, but we are going to start by paying attention very deliberately to this consumption of air that we do anyway. And we are going to breathe through our nostrils, first letting out all the air in our lungs, because to feel something, we want it to be empty first. And we do it again through our nostrils, slowly but deeply. And enjoy ourselves occupying us with this breathing, and then enjoy the release softly, deeply, slowly. And once again, because we don't stop, we cannot stop. And this is another connection with our environment. Let's do it again, in which at times we receive and at times we offer, we accept, and we eliminate, we let go. So that is the dynamic, the essence of our connection to our world. And that simple occupation actually brings a little bit of relaxation. We can do it once more, receiving all the inspiration, all the good qualities that we would like to practice, our dreams, and then releasing what we want to leave behind, the obstacles, who are also part of ourselves. And once again, we are going to ask ourselves what we are doing here, what we want out of this session. And we are not going to be in a rush to answer this question. We'll leave it hanging there and listen. Because from where we are and to the heaven we want to reach, the sky, there is my space to maneuver. And what I aim for may take a different form for myself, and a different form depending on the moment and the situation. What is it that I need now? And I can help answering this question by going back in time and finding a nurturing memory, a memory where I felt I had that balanced connection, that sense of well being, that confidence and security, that moment of not worrying about anything. And if I don't find it in my past, maybe I recognize it right here, right now, among friends, in the peace of this space. Or maybe I can imagine a situation that would be like that, and real nonetheless, because all the elements that I use to imagine it come from reality. And without the need for words, I'm going to go to that scene, whatever it is, the first or the second one that showed up in my head, and simply rest there. Pay attention to that, resting in all the details, the sounds, all the things that were going on, if something was happening, the people around me, if there were anybody, the scenery. All that to find and try to recreate that feeling. And it's a feeling that I could have not produced on my own. I needed something or somebody else. I needed to offer something or to receive something. I needed to acknowledge and to be acknowledged. And this is what brings the fulfillment that I desire in whatever form it takes right now. But what I want, regardless of the circumstances, is to be at that point of balance, that healthy connection with my circumstances. And isn't it a radical idea that we are actually able to create that balanced connection, that state of well being, that confidence? For we have limited ability to change our circumstances, we have endless ability to change ourselves. And try to find that stillness, that balanced connection in a world that is in motion. And what would do that for ourselves? How would that change our relationship to the world, and what would that bring to others around us? So let's practice. Let's venture out beyond our imagination or our memory or this present situation into the changing, moving reality. And let's choose stimulus, sensation. And I invite you to allow that sensation, that stimulus, to knock on your door, to call for your attention without any rush. It may be uh, the sound of the environment, or it may be a sensation that accompanies the breathing, the temperature of the air coming in a little bit cooler than leaving the nostrils. Or the movement of the stomach. Or it may be another sensation, the body temperature, or the feeling of the cushion or the chair. Let us choose one, just one, for practice. And meet that sensation when it is calling for our attention. And then start the journey, accompanying the sensation moment to moment. And if it's something related to breathing, perhaps we can count inhalation and exhalation to 5 to 7 or 10. And that way, reminding ourselves that we're just doing that, paying attention. It is very likely that you're having difficulties at doing this simple task, but let us not get frustrated. Let's actually use that, take that as useful information to try to change what we may be we may do differently. Perhaps we are trying too hard, putting too much intensity, trying to direct the experience. And how do you put less effort? Well, I generally say you take a step back and try to enjoy the ride. Being aware of our expectations, but setting them aside. Or it may be that distractions keep coming, and that is all right as well. We cannot help it. But we don't have to become involved with each distraction. As soon as we notice, we have the ability to turn our attention back to our focus, like if we were simply moving our head back to the point that we were looking at before. or we may be feeling drowsy, lethargic, and in that case, it's time to put a little bit more of an effort. Remember our intention, what is at stake, the heaven we are aiming for, and take a step forward and allow ourselves to be amused by this changing sensation moment to moment as if it had a life of itself. And perhaps for an instant, we have the impression that we are face to face with this sensation, accompanying it, and then we lose it. And both things are helpful to know what it feels like and to know what it doesn't feel like. And let's not create the expectation that it's always going to be one way or another. We are just practicing, we are experimenting, and the benefits will only come in the long term, but we are doing exactly what we need to be doing, no more, no less. And perhaps if we have one or two instances of facing this sensation, seeing it with the clarity that certain stability gives us, we also realize that this is a dynamic process, that it changes constantly, the level of effort changing, the sensation changing, ourselves changing. It's nothing static that we can hold, but we cannot reject the experience either. And our power is simply to remain attentive, to accompany it, to approach, to go back, come back, and not to become involved with things we don't want to pay attention to, even if they show up. And whether or not we have been able to establish a healthy, balanced connection with that sensation, we have a better idea of what we are aiming for after this practice. And if we had the benefit of the stability and clarity for just a few moments, that's great. And if we didn't, that's great. But it is that stability and clarity what we want to extend to the relationship with our thoughts, with our relationship with ourselves, and then to our relationship with others, in which more than directing our experiences or imposing or allowing circumstances to impose on ourselves, we simply see, perceive, accompany what is there, and find the less effortful action that restores balance and health. And we conclude with the aspiration to perceive, to hold whatever is, not to tie, not too loosely, in myself and around me, in order to have the clarity again to do what would be best for myself and others. And also, we conclude with the desire that we all have certain serenity to see what is in front of our eyes, and with that, the clarity uh, of this wonderful connection that life is. Thank you.